status update for June 16, 2022, day 113 of the war, end of the date update. We're going to have very short strategic questions, as there was meeting today in Kyiv between Ukrainian President Zelensky and then leaders of Germany, France and Italy. As we discussed, the goal of that meeting was to convince Ukrainian president to accept sort of truce or peace or effectively capitulation with Russia, ceding Crimea and then also Luhansk and Donetsk regions in full. And the situation with the Zaporizhzhia and Kherson still remains unclear. That obviously is not acceptable for Ukrainian society as a whole. So as a result, Ukrainian president essentially said no. And so this meeting was essentially a big flop from a perspective of those three countries. So as we discussed, it's not that meeting would lead to nowhere essentially. So now let's actually jump into the walk through the front line. So we're gonna do it. We're gonna start from very north and gonna go down south in a clockwise fashion and then west. So again, there is ongoing artillery shelling along the border here. Ukrainian side it's Chernihiv and Sumy region, and Russian side it's Bryansk, Kursk and Belgorod regions. The Ukrainian sources also even cite that Russian army used attack helicopter Ka-52 to attack Ukrainian targets, on the Ukrainian side. We don't have confirmation for that. Now let's move south to Kharkiv area. So here, essentially, situation more or less stable or stabilized relatively after Russian troops pushed Ukrainian and created this buffer here along the state border. They still try to push a little bit south and essentially capture first Rubizhne here and then Starytsya. The point of this sort of small-scale attack is to cut off Ukrainian troops from Siversy Donets here in this area to prevent potential sort of crossing of the river in large scale, because Ukrainian reconnaissance groups are operating here on the eastern side of Siversy Donets. So essentially it's kind of like one big no man's area, and so gray zone. And so they operate here, Russian groups operating here. So essentially there is concern on the Russian side, the Russian command, that Ukrainian forces eventually will be able to create pontoon bridge and establish actual real bridgehead with actual regular troops here, and potentially then obviously there is potential for attack, and which could be very dangerous for Russian logistics and supply of all of the troops down there on the Izyum bridgehead. So this could be extremely potential dangerous situation. So the Russian command is trying to prevent that from happening. So they're kind of pushing down south in an attempt to kind of close this access to the river by Ukrainian side. So far they were not successful. Rubizhne and Starytsya still in Ukrainian hands, but nevertheless, so that was probably the original idea also behind not only the building buffer here, but also trying to cut off Ukrainian troops from the river. By the way, this is actually for those who are in the US and following up for the reasons because they want to understand what's going on with US volunteers. So those two volunteers were captured by Russian forces here in this village Izbytske. If you go probably 2 or 3 videos back, we showed the detailed map of the front line here, and you'll see the village Izbytske. That's where they were captured. We don't know details of how that sort of transpired, but just just sharing the knowledge of where sort of they were fighting and where they were captured. Now let's move down south to Izyum bridgehead, and let's see what's going on there. Situation was stable in terms of there are no Russian progress here. They're still fighting around this village Bogorodychne. It's probably changing hand a couple times by now, but Russian troops were not able to gain full control and sort of push out Ukrainian troops in a clear way out of it. Again, here situation as well. Russian troops and Ukrainian troops are fighting in these villages Krasnopillya and Dolyna that are here. So these are main areas where there is fighting going on here on Izyum bridgehead. Now let's move to Severodonetsk area, Severodonetsk salient as we call it, and let's see what's going on there. So first of all, Ukrainian bridgehead still holding on in Severodonetsk and the chemical plant area. This is as we discussed, this is extremely difficult for Ukrainian troops to resupply these units here, as there are no bridges at this point. So you literally have to kind of cross the river in the best case on the boat, and in the worst case you just need to swim across the river. So it remains to be seen how long Ukrainian troops can hold there in such difficult conditions in terms of not receiving enough ammunition at this point. Then there are some developments and quite negative developments here in the Popasna area. So Russian troops captured village Vrubivka, which we discussed. It was kind of cornerstone of Ukrainian defenses that sort of make it very difficult to encircle these troops here in Zolote and Hirske area. Now it becomes easier and sort of kind of like at hand's reach for Russian side. The front line is still sort of stable here. The Ukrainian troops are not withdrawing, but the situation really, let's say, hanging by the thread, sort of to speak, here in this area. Also, there were negative developments on this kind of like western shoulder of this axis. If we kind of think that Mykolaievka area would be like center, would be sort of eastern shoulder. This is western shoulder. So Russian troops managed to capture first of all village Nagirne here, and we'll look into it, and then essentially control small section of the road here now. Ukrainian side troops literally on the other side of the road. Nevertheless, this is clearly they made some progress here. And as we discussed before, they don't really need to get all the way, sort of, let's say, to this bridge. They don't even need to get to this road here, which is the main supply route at this point right now for all of those troops that are in this Severodonetsk salient. So the supply is happening right now, different roads, but one of the major one is from this town Siversky, and then it's just this road goes here, and supply goes to Severodonetsk and Lysychansk, and some of it is going here, and here it's only like sort of call it like small rural roads. At this point, there's no way to easily actually supply Ukrainian troops in this Hirske and Zolote area. We'll look at it when we look at the more detailed map. But essentially, what we're trying to say, all the Russian troops need to do at this point to actually force kind of withdrawal from all of this area, or essentially create sort of operational encirclement, is to get to about this area of Varvarivka and Spirne, because once they're there, they're gonna have fire control over this road, and it will become extremely difficult, extremely costly to resupply all of these units here. And even if it's still possible, it's going to be possible to sort of send some sort of tracks through this road. Some of them are going to get destroyed, but the volume of resupply will for sure drop, and that by itself will force withdrawal from this area, right? So it's the Russian troops are really getting close to being able to force withdrawal, or if they probably will not be able to sort of do encirclement, simply because there is as you can see, there's a very high density of Ukrainian troops. By the way, the 10th brigade that we were showing now, it's actually it was defending Vrubivka, and they lost there, and so they withdrew north of Vrubivka right now. So it's actually joint fighting as well. Only one battalion based on our information. So as you can see, but anyways, the entire brigade is in this area. So as you can see, it's going to be nearly impossible to do encirclement, but for sure it will force withdrawal of Ukrainian troops from all of this area, from Lysychansk, Severodonetsk, all of this Izbytske, Azot, essentially everything that's sort of east of this line that goes from Berestove, Spirne, Verkhnyo-Kamenske and Bilogorivka. So that would be all lost if Russian troops manage to push to area around Ivanodarivka and Spirne, essentially. So this is, and as you can see, it's not that far at this point. So we'll see. Again, as we said, the situation is really hanging by a thread in this whole area. So now let's let's actually look in deep. This is a situation in Severodonetsk, which, as we discussed, is not changing much in terms of Ukrainian troops are still controlling this chemical plant. But as we said, their resupply is extremely difficult, and that's probably where eventually that will lead to withdrawal from here, as the amount of ammunition that's being expended defending is going to be much higher than what is being supplied. So eventually it's kind of like slowly kind of suffocating you just from an ammunition perspective. But for now, they're still holding on there. Now let's actually look a little bit. This is actually want to show older map, so how it used to be before Russian gains. So as you can see, Ukrainian troops controlled this village Bilogorivka, Berestove, and portion of Nagirne, and essentially Russian troops were a little bit like east of the road right here. We want to just kind of draw your attention so you understand the difference, what happened. And then, you know, the Ukrainian troops controlled this Vrubivka here. So now let's actually move and see. So essentially Russian troops now pushed here, and they fully control Nagirne. They control part of Bilogorivka, part of Berestove, and essentially they control section of this main road here. This road obviously are not usable at this point, but just to it's kind of like a sort of clear line on the sand, essentially. And then now they also control Vrubivka, right? So then they created again sort of next, like kind of like clean bridgehead for the next sort of move, because now the flanks are protected, even from a perspective, let's say they push there, which is obviously the main area where they want to go straight north. So the flank, then now it's not some kind of salient, the flank is covered by capture of the Vrubivka, and then here they're still trying to push Ukrainian troops sort of even further down towards west. So that prepares for the next leap to north, which may become sort of fatal blow to all of this group of Ukrainian troops that are sort of east of this line that we discussed. At this point, all of this resupply of all of these troops in Zolote, Izbytske, all of this is extremely difficult as well. It's obviously easier than in Severodonetsk, but there's no kind of major roads that connect this whole area to the sort of that Lysychansk. So it's all kind of small back roads, and even sort of supplies through the fields, like field roads. So so again, the sort of resupply here is difficult, let's put this way. Now let's keep going. Let's look at what's going on sort of in the southern section of this Popasna salient. So Russian Wagner group is actively attacking here, and let's actually look at. They made some progress, by the way, there as well. So what they did, they actually managed to get over this road, which was very good natural sort of defensive position here. So they managed to get over it and kind of create a bridgehead. And they're trying to push in two directions here. One towards Zaitsevo here, this village here, in this direction. And the other direction, they're trying to attack here towards Semigirya. Obviously, this is here, it's very sort of straightforward, right? They're hoping to sort of kind of come from the north, create like a northern pincer, and either encircle here Ukrainian troops or force their withdrawal, right? So this is kind of like sort of standard, typical sort of action or maneuver that you can see here being played now very actively by Russian troops, and specifically by Wagner group, that they kind of I would say excelled at this maneuver, right? And if for those who have been long enough, they remember that in this way Wagner group managed to how to say, force withdrawal of Ukrainian troops from this whole Svitlodarsk salient that was very well entrenched, and it was a good defensive position. Unfortunately, it was all lost because the Wagner mercenaries attacked from the flank and the rear, and under threat of encirclement, Ukrainian troops had to abandon all of this area, essentially, without much fight. So this is, now they're trying to kind of execute the same plan again by capturing this this power plant, this big power plant here, and this small town near it. So and then attack towards Zaitsevo is also really creates very difficult situation for all of this, that it's kind of creating big problems with potential risk for all of this, cutting this main road that's being used to supply, obviously, Ukrainian troops here. So because if once they get to Zaitsevo, then they have fire control over this road, and essentially that means that they can prevent use of this road. Now let's go down south. Let's see what's going on west of Donetsk. There is everything is sort of relatively quiet here, and the reason is that even from what we're learning, some of their First Army Corps units are being pulled from here. We mentioned that 61st Naval Infantry Brigade was pulled out of here to Popasna area, but even based on our information, even the 100th Brigade was pulled as well. So here it's just sort of essentially kind of like we won't say screening troops, but very thin defense line on the Russian side in this area right now. So there's no any major active action here. Let's actually there's some action around here, Pavlivka and Vuhledar. Let's actually, this is this area where the Russian troops try to achieve. Where there was the objective to capture Avdiivka, which is essentially on hold right now because all of the sort of major attacking troops are gone. So now let's actually go and let's see what's going on here on Zaporizhia front line, which is sort of also on hold, stable, frozen, with the only exception that Ukrainian sort of like a reconnaissance group or small size unit, what they did, they tried to kind of attack towards here and sort of essentially try to kind of force withdrawal of Russian troops from Pavlivka. So they kind of attacked in this direction, but they were repelled. This is not a major scale attack, just kind of like local action in this area at this point. Maybe this is kind of, maybe this means that there will be more action down the road in this area. We don't know, but so far it was literally like reconnaissance action in this direction. Now let's look at their sort of the whole Zaporizhia front line, which is again, as we said, stable. Artillery shelling, skirmishes similar to the Pavlivka, and beyond that, there is not. It's relatively quiet. Now let's move to Zaporizhia front line and see what's going. To Kherson front. Let's move to Kherson bridgehead and let's look what's going on there. Situation again stable here, frozen. Essentially, artillery exchange of artillery fire was the only thing what we kind of learning, and we still don't have 100% confirmation, but it does seem that Ukrainian side managed to keep control of this village Bruskynske. And once we have confirmation, we'll update map. So in that case, the map looks more like there is a salient around the Bruskynske, which is important for the future. Right now, it's kind of to extent irrelevant information. But what this really means that the sort of future eventual jump to Nova Kakhovka is becoming even a little bit sort of easier, right? Shorter. But at the same time, it's also very obvious direction of attack for Russian troops at this point. So they kind of building based on this source of information, and which again we don't have 100% confirmation, but they building basically very strong defensive line, digging in. Defense, creating basically elaborate engineering defenses here around this Bruskynske. So we'll try to confirm this information next several days, but that's essentially for now this is to extent irrelevant because there is no active fighting, no active sort of action on either side right now. Okay, thanks for watching, and until tomorrow, bye bye.